The porch light has been on for 6 hours. You don't remember turning it on. Somewhere in the house, a clock stopped working weeks ago and nobody has bothered to fix it. So it just sits there, frozen at the same time, day after day, like it's waiting for something too. Tonight, of all nights, you noticed it. You stood in the hallway for a second longer than you meant to, staring at hands that don't move anymore, and something in your chest asked a question you didn't have words for. Then you picked up your phone, and here you are, my beloved child. Before this night ends, something in you is going to change. I don't say that lightly, and I don't say it the way people say things to keep you watching a little longer. I say it because it's already begun. You didn't find this by scrolling aimlessly. I know it might feel that way. I know you'll want to explain it later as coincidence, an algorithm, bad luck at 2 in the morning. But I was behind that stop clock catching your eye tonight. I was behind the porch light you don't remember switching on. Small things, quiet things, the kind of things you only notice when I want you to notice them. Stop for a second, listen carefully. I need you to actually hear this, not just let it pass over you the way most things do these days. I know the specific weight you've been carrying, not some general idea of tiredness, but the particular shape of it. I know the exact sentence someone said to you that you still replay at night, turning it over, looking for a version of it that doesn't hurt as much. I know the prayer you stopped praying because you got tired of hearing nothing back. I know the version of yourself you used to be, before certain things happened, and I know how far that feels from who you are now. This is not going to be a night where I tell you to wait for tomorrow. I've heard that kind of comfort before, and so have you. Someday, eventually. In a season you just have to survive first. That's not comfort, that's exhaustion wearing a nicer coat. I don't speak that way to you. What I want to begin, I mean tonight, while the porch light is still on, while the house is quiet enough that you can actually hear something other than your own noise for once. Your life is already changing, and I don't mean that the way it sounds when people say it to make a video feel exciting. I mean that somewhere beneath the surface, something has shifted the moment you stopped scrolling and started listening. You may not feel it yet, that's all right. Rivers reshape canyons without anyone watching them do it. You've spent a long time holding everything together with your own 2 hands. I've watched you do it. I've watched you say, "I'm fine," so many times it stopped sounding like a lie and started sounding like a reflex. There's a kind of strength in that. I'm not going to pretend there isn't, but strength that never puts anything down eventually turns into something else. It turns into a wall. And walls don't just keep out the things that hurt you. They keep out the things that could have healed you too. They kept out me for longer than either of us wanted. Here is what tonight actually is, and I want to be honest with you instead of making promises that sound bigger than they are. I'm not telling you that by morning your bank account will look different, or the phone call you've been waiting years for will finally come, or the relationship that's been quietly breaking will suddenly mend itself. I won't say that to keep you watching. That's not how I work, and it's not what you need most anyway. What I am telling you is this. Something in you can begin to change tonight. Tonight, not someday. And I know that might sound smaller than what you hope to hear. It isn't. Everything you've been asking me to fix out there has its roots down here, in places you've been avoiding because looking at them honestly felt like more than you could survive alone. You don't have to survive it alone. That was never the plan. You came here carrying more than you've told anyone, more than you've told yourself most days. I already know what it is. I was there when it happened, whatever it was. I was there in the silence afterward, the kind of silence that isn't peaceful, the kind that just means no one else was in the room. I never once looked away, even in the years you were sure I had stopped looking altogether. Tonight is not the end of your old story. I'm not erasing what you've lived through, and I'm not asking you to pretend it didn't cost you what it cost you. But I am telling you, as your father, as the one who knew your name before you had a mouth to answer to it, that this is not where your story ends. You think you came looking for me tonight, but I found you long before you started searching. Tonight is the beginning of something you cannot yet see. Let me show you where it starts. My beloved child, I want to tell you something, and I need you to actually sit with it instead of letting it slide past the way most things do. You have been asking me for the wrong thing, not because your pain wasn't real, not because your requests were foolish, but because you've been asking me to rearrange what's around you, when what actually needs my hand first is what's inside you. Think about what you've prayed for lately. Be honest, the way you'd be honest with no one else listening. A different job, a different response from someone whose silence has hurt you more than their words ever could. A different ending to a conversation you keep replaying at 2 a.m., editing your own lines like you could go back and say it better. I hear that longing. I'm not dismissing it. But here is the truth, and I want you to remember it, because it's the truth this entire night is built on. Your future always follows your heart, not the other way around. Tonight, when I say your life will change, I don't mean the scenery is about to shift while you stay the same underneath it. I mean I'm changing the ground your whole life grows out of. That's a bigger promise than a new job. It just doesn't look like one yet. Stop for a moment. Listen to this part carefully. If I gave you everything you're asking for right now, exactly as you've pictured it, and your heart stayed exactly as it is, still afraid, still braced for the next disappointment, still convinced good things slip through your hands eventually, what do you think would happen? You would find a way to lose it. Not because you're broken beyond repair, because a heart trained to expect loss will sometimes create the very loss it fears, just to stop the waiting. I have watched you do this before. I'm not saying it to shame you. I'm saying it because I don't want to watch it happen again. There's an old promise I made long before your name existed. I said I would give a new heart, not a patched one, held together with the same effort you've been using for years just to keep functioning, a new one. I said I would take what had gone hard from disappointment after disappointment and make it able to feel again without shattering. You might say your heart doesn't feel hard. It feels like too much, not too little. I hear you. But stone isn't always the absence of feeling. Sometimes it's what forms around feeling to protect it. A shell built over something soft that got hurt one too many times. You can carry an ocean inside a heart that has still, in its own quiet way, gone to stone toward hope, toward trust, toward me. Rain never argues with dry ground. It simply stays until the ground changes. That's what I'm doing in you. Not a flood. Floods wash things away, and I'm not interested in washing you away. I mean the slow kind of rain, the kind that shows up night after night until what was hard finally starts to give. You may wonder why I don't just do it all at once, hand you the fully grown thing instead of the process. My beloved child, a heart forced open too fast doesn't heal. It just breaks in a different place. I'm not interested in breaking you again. I'm interested in making you whole, and wholeness takes longer than a single night, even when it's me doing the work. This is not a punishment. Hear that clearly, because I know how easily waiting turns into the fear that you're being made to suffer for something. You are not being punished. You are being prepared. From where you're standing right now, those two things can feel almost identical. They are not. What I am doing in you tonight is quieter than anything you'll be able to point to tomorrow and say, "There, that's when it happened." It won't come with thunder. It will feel, if anything, like almost nothing. A small loosening somewhere you didn't know was clenched. The first inch of ground finally taking in water it's been thirsty for longer than you realized. I know exactly which nights you almost stopped believing anything would change. I know the specific hour it got hardest, the one you never told anyone about because it felt too small to matter and too heavy to explain. I was there for that hour too. Before your life changes on the outside, I am already changing something on the inside. You may not feel it yet tonight. That's all right. The change doesn't need your permission to be real. It only needs your patience to be seen. But there is something standing between you and that softening, something that has been talking to you for years in a voice you mistook for your own. It has decided things for you that were never its right to decide. It has been quietly steering choices you thought were entirely yours. I want to deal with that next. Because until we do, even the softest heart will keep believing things about itself that were never true. My beloved child, before we go any further, I need to ask you something. Don't rush past it the way you rush past most hard questions. Sit with it. Who told you that you were too old for this to change? Who told you that you were too broken, too many mistakes deep, too far gone to start over? Who told you that you were too late, that some window closed years ago while you weren't paying attention? Who told you that you weren't enough? Stop. Really think about who said it. Because I want you to notice something. It wasn't me. I have never spoken a single one of those sentences over your life. Not in anger. Not in the silence you mistook for judgment. Not even in the seasons you were most convinced I had given up on you. If you've been carrying those words around like they came from heaven, put them down. They were never mine to say. The world said it. It has a way of measuring people against timelines that were never sacred, deciding certain doors close at certain ages, certain mistakes disqualify you permanently. Pain said it too. Pain doesn't just hurt you. Given enough time, it starts narrating you, explaining your own worth back to you in a voice that sounds like wisdom but isn't. And disappointment said it, building its case against your future, one broken hope at a time, until the verdict felt too thorough to argue with. Fear predicted your future. I never did. I want to show you something, because I think you'll recognize yourself in it. There was a man named Gideon, hiding in a wine press, threshing wheat in secret because he was too afraid to be seen doing it in the open. He called himself the least in his family, from the weakest clan he knew. That is who I chose to lead an army. There was Moses, standing in front of me with a list of reasons he couldn't possibly be the one. A stutter, guilt from a killing he never stopped carrying. 40 years tending someone else's sheep in the middle of nowhere. I didn't argue with his list. I simply told him it wasn't disqualifying. There was Sarah, who laughed out loud when she heard what I was planning, because her body had long since stopped believing in new beginnings. Her age had already written the ending, as far as she was concerned. I wrote a different one. And there was Jeremiah, barely more than a boy, telling me he couldn't speak for me because he didn't know how yet. I told him I had known him before he was formed. His voice belonged to me before it belonged to his doubts. Every one of them had a real reason to believe they were the wrong person. Every single time, I wasn't interested in their case against themselves. I was interested in what I could build with whatever was left after fear finished talking. The first thing I change in a person is never their circumstances. It's the voice they've been listening to. Here's why this matters more than you think tonight. Those lies haven't just made you feel bad about yourself. They have been deciding your choices. The job you didn't apply for. The conversation you never started. The dream you quietly buried because a voice that was never mine told you it wasn't worth the disappointment of trying. Every lie you believed became a door you never walked through. That's not a small thing. That's your whole life, redirected by a voice with no right to speak into it. You think it was just a feeling. It was a decision, made for you, over and over, by something that was never me. Tonight I am not asking you to feel differently about those lies. I am asking you to stop obeying them. There is one more lie underneath all of these, older than the rest, quieter than the rest, which is exactly why it has done the most damage without you noticing it was even there. It doesn't announce itself the way the others do. It doesn't call you broken or too late. It works differently. It tells you that you've been forgotten. I want to remove it forever, but not yet. First, I want you to sit for a moment with what you just heard, because I don't want you carrying it out of this part of the letter the same way you carried it in. You are not the voice that named you. You never were. My beloved child, I promised you I would remove the deepest lie, so let me say it plainly now, the way I say everything to you tonight, without dressing it up. The lie is this, that you have been forgotten, that while everyone else's life keeps moving, yours got quietly set on a shelf somewhere and left there, that the waiting means nothing is happening, that my silence means my absence. Stop, listen carefully, because I need you to hear this part exactly as I mean it. You have not been forgotten for one single hour of your life. I know what your days look like right now, the same walls, the same unanswered question sitting exactly where it sat last year. Maybe that clock in your house isn't the only thing that feels stopped. Maybe your whole life feels like it's been frozen at the same hour for longer than you want to admit, and your mind, tired and afraid, draws the only conclusion it knows how to draw. Nothing is happening. I have stopped working on your behalf. That conclusion is wrong. I have been preparing what you cannot yet see. There was a boy named Joseph, sold by his own brothers, dragged into a country that wasn't his, falsely accused, forgotten in a prison cell by the one man who promised to remember him. If you had asked Joseph, in the middle of those years, whether anything was happening, he would have told you no. He would have told you he'd been discarded, by his family and by his God both. But I was doing something in that darkness no one, including Joseph, could see yet. The years you call wasted, heaven calls preparation. Years later, the very things that looked like ruin, the betrayal, the false accusation, the forgotten years, became the exact shape of what he needed to save an entire nation, including the brothers who threw him away. He didn't skip the hidden years to get there. The hidden years were the whole point. I know exactly which year of your life felt the most like that prison. I know the specific stretch of time you still think of as the years you lost, the ones you can't quite explain to people because explaining them makes you sound like someone who gave up. You didn't give up. You survived something, and I was building with it the entire time, even when it looked like nothing but waste to you. Picture the road outside your window in the hour just before dawn, the one you've driven 100 times without ever really looking at it. In that hour, it looks like nothing. Gray, empty, half-lit, and yet that same road, in another hour, will be full of light. The same road, unchanged, just finally seen in the right hour. My beloved child, you are that road right now. Nothing about you needs to change for the light to come. You only need the hour to arrive. Think of an old letter left in a drawer for years, unopened, forgotten by everyone except the person who wrote it. From the outside, it looks like nothing, just paper going yellow in the dark. But the words inside it never stopped being true the whole time no one was reading them. What I have written into your life has not expired sitting in the drawer. It has been waiting for the hour you'd finally open it. That hour is closer than you think. Here is why I don't hand you the whole opportunity before I've finished shaping you for it. If I gave you the thing you're praying for right now, today, before your heart had caught up to carrying it, it would break you instead of building you. I love you too much to do that to you, even when love, in that particular shape, feels like delay. This is not punishment. I need you to actually believe that, not just hear it. You are not being made to wait as payment for something. You are being prepared, the way a hand is prepared for a weight before it's ever asked to lift it. What I have been doing in the quiet stretch of your life is not silence that means absence. It's quiet that means work. I have been shaping who you are before I open the door. Only that shape can walk through. I have been healing what needed healing before I hand you the thing that healing was required to hold without shattering. I have done this in the exact seasons you assumed were empty. They were never empty, not one of them. Your life is already changing, even in ways too small yet for you to measure by tomorrow morning. I know that's not the kind of proof you wanted tonight, something you could point to and say, there, that's when everything shifted. But there is one more thing I'm asking of you, one last step, and it isn't complicated. It might, though, be the hardest thing I've asked you to do all night. My beloved child, I told you there was one more thing I needed from you tonight, and I want you to hear it exactly as I mean it, because it would be easy to turn this into something bigger and heavier than it actually is. I am not asking you to fix your whole life before morning. I am not handing you a list of everything that needs to change, every habit, every relationship, every fear, and telling you to conquer it all before the sun comes up. That pressure has never once come from me. It comes from the same voice we already dealt with, the one that tells you nothing has really changed unless everything changes at once. What I'm asking is smaller than that, and somehow, at the same time, bigger than anything else in this letter. Walk with me, beginning tonight. Stop. Listen to this part slowly, because it matters more than it sounds like it does. Don't try to rebuild your entire life by tomorrow afternoon. Don't expect the weight you've carried for years to be gone the moment you open your eyes, because that isn't how healing actually works, no matter how much either of us might wish it were. What I'm asking is one step, just one. Let it be toward me instead of away. Tomorrow, before the noise of your day starts pulling you in 6 directions, sit with me for a few minutes. Not an hour you'll abandon by Thursday because it felt too heavy to keep up. A few minutes. Honest ones, even if honest means you don't have pretty words to bring me. I have never once required pretty words from you. Open my word, even just a little. Not like an exam you have to pass. Let one sentence sit with you, the way a steady friend's voice sits with you after a hard day, unhurried, patient, not going anywhere. Talk to me in the ordinary minutes too, not only the formal ones. In the car, over coffee, in the space between one obligation and the next. That's where I've always wanted to live with you, not only in the emergencies. And then, simply, let me lead. I know that part asks the most of you. Loosening your grip on the wheel, even for a day, feels unfamiliar when you've spent so long holding it out of necessity. I am not asking you to abandon responsibility. I am asking you to stop carrying it entirely by yourself. Here is what I promise you, and I want you to hear it as a promise, not a suggestion. If you walk with me starting tonight, your life will not stay the same. I'm not going to exaggerate that, the way the world exaggerates things to keep you watching a little longer. I'm your father. I don't need to inflate a promise to make it worth keeping, but I want to be honest about what that change will actually look like, because I don't want you disappointed by expecting the wrong kind of miracle. This is not a promise that every problem disappears by sunrise. It is not a guarantee of sudden money, a mended relationship overnight, a phone call from someone who's been silent for years. I know that might not be what you hope to hear. Listen closely anyway, because it matters more than any of those things would have. The hard conversation may still need to happen tomorrow. The uncertainty may not resolve itself in a single night. What changes is not necessarily what's sitting in front of you. What changes is that you will no longer face it with your hands alone. That is the real miracle, my beloved child, not the removal of everything hard, the presence of someone steady inside every hard thing that remains. You have spent so long gripping tightly, working hard, staying strong by sheer will, convinced that's the only way through, and maybe it has gotten you through some of it. But look at the cost. Look at what that kind of exhausting self-reliance has done to the tender places inside you that were never built to carry that much weight alone. I am not asking you to stop being strong. I am asking you to stop being strong by yourself. Go back to that stopped clock in your house, the one you noticed tonight without knowing why. Some part of you has felt frozen at the same hour for longer than you've admitted out loud. My beloved child, that clock does not decide what time it actually is. I do. And the hour you've been stuck in is not the hour your whole story ends on. Tonight is not the night you simply found a video in the dark, scrolling at an hour you'll probably forget by next week. Tonight is the night you remembered something you'd let yourself forget, that I have never once stopped walking beside you, even in the years it felt like I had. Rest now. You've earned that much, even if no one has told you so in a while. Let your shoulders drop. Let whatever this letter stirred in you settle instead of spinning until sunrise. Tomorrow will come the way it always does, ordinary and loud in its own small way. And when it does, we will walk into it together. Not you managing it alone while I watch from somewhere distant. Together, the way it was always supposed to be between us. Years from now, you may not remember this exact date, this exact hour, this exact video you almost didn't click on. But heaven will, because tonight, quietly, without any thunder to announce it, your story began to change. If something in this letter found you tonight, I would love to know it did. Leave a comment and tell me where you're watching from, and which part of this reached the place you needed it most. There are more letters like this one waiting to be shared with you, so if tonight meant something, stay close, subscribe, so you don't miss the next one. Let's keep walking this road together.